So today's topic is how you can learn in an efficient way, but without struggling, one or more languages. And I don't know whether you have the same impression. So in my opinion, it depends a lot on, so when you learn a language, in my opinion, one of the most important things is the mindset. It's not, so one thing is, some years ago, I really thought it was more about the method, which I still think is super important, because if you learn with material that is not interesting, or then it will not work or not so fast, so you might lose motivation. But at the same time, I believe nowadays that sometimes we are our own enemies, because we tell us, no, you are not learning fast enough, your pronunciation is not so good, and we are saying that to ourselves. And I also believe that nowadays we have so many resources, and it's really good because we can find things that we couldn't find a long time ago. So many books, so much material, but at the same time, in my opinion, I don't know whether you share this opinion, but in my opinion, there are many apps or books that we feel frustrated and we think it's us that are not progressing, but actually it's because we are not aligning our ultimate goal in this language, our preferences, what we really want to be able to do in this language, with how we learn the language. To give an example, if what I want to do is to speak to you guys in different languages, if what I do is only reading or only working with an app, of course I'm not practicing speaking, so it will not. I will feel frustrated if I don't progress towards my ultimate goal. So I don't know whether you have already thought one of the following. I think everyone has at some point. So why do I not make progress? Or I know a lot of grammar, but I can't speak, or it's hard to find time to study. I'm sure that since you are polyglots, you have also overcome those issues, but at the same time, at least also in my case, also as a polyglot like you, it happens to me that, I don't know, one language is easier than another, or I know how to make progress in one language, but maybe another one has other different challenges. So do you ever think something like that? Yeah, so one person, fantastic, then you will give the talk instead of me. Okay. So, so as I said, I think it's the issues are, okay, finding the time and the method and also the mindset. But I believe that, as you know, if we follow our passions and we are persistent and consistent, then we will definitely reach our goal. So, on one end, this talk is, I don't want to say for beginners, because none of you is a beginner, but for sure to improve our learning strategies, or what I think in this case is more important. I don't know about you, but sometimes we know many things, like for diets. We know what is good, what is bad, how to eat healthily, but sometimes we need a kick to remember how to do things so that it works. So I'm sure that you all know, but sometimes, at least myself, I need someone to remind me something that I knew but I don't do, or something like that. Does it happen to you? Yeah? Okay, so super briefly, this is the part of presentations I hate the most, where I say who I am and what I do. So I'm super shy from this point of view. I've studied 25 languages. I teach 13 of them, and I teach multiple languages at the same time. So in one class, someone who wants to practice up to 10 languages, and it's something that I like very much. And I studied translating and interpreting and didactics, and yeah. So I experimented different methods, and yeah, I love it. Okay, yeah, my greatest passion is to teach, and it was a picture in Bratislava where I was teaching 6 languages at the same time. Okay, so let's start. The first one, to be honest, is super understandable. I mean, super easy. Nothing is not like, in Italian I would say it's hot water, so super, but I must say that sometimes, especially you, maybe some of you are language coaches, I think the most important part is sometimes we want something, but we don't do anything for it. Today I don't have time, maybe I will do the double tomorrow, and this day never comes. So the most important thing is that, for example, I remember, for example, a language I like a lot is Hungarian, but I don't necessarily dedicate enough time to Hungarian. And I know that since I started to like Hungarian like 15 years ago, if I had studied 5 minutes or 10 minutes 10 years ago, today I would be an Hungarian teacher. So one little reminder is that start today, because even if you don't see much progress or if you study only, many people say, but what can I do in 5 minutes? Not only Duolingo, please, but in general, if you study, as I said at the beginning, in a way that it's aligned to your ultimate goal, then even if you study just 5 or 15 minutes a day, in 1 year, 2 years time, you will still be very good. Okay, number 2. So make sure to practice the skill you want to improve. I think that there are many of, who is a language teacher here? Yeah, so I think you all had students who say, yeah, I really want to speak this language, and then what do you do in your free time? So how do you improve your language? I read, which is, of course, through reading, if you do it in using different techniques, you can, on one hand, revise vocabulary. On the other hand, I call it to be a detective. If you're a detective, when you read, of course, you can learn grammar through reading, which is fantastic. But at the same time, it's like, if I want to learn how to drive, I cannot just read the manual. If I want to speak a language, what I have to do is to speak it, if it's my real goal. And if I want to, so it really depends on our goal. And I know that not everyone agrees with me, and that's totally fine. But what I love is to speak a language from day one. Of course, it won't be perfect, but it's totally possible to start seeing your progress from the very beginning, so that you feel motivated to study more. Because I don't know you, but if I know that I will start speaking a certain language in 6 months or 1 year time, to be honest, by the time I reach the 6 months, I would have already stopped learning the language. So this is because the real reason why I learn languages is to speak with people, to connect with people, to understand people better, to understand other mentalities and other way of speaking. So for me, it's impossible to wait for 1 or 2 years before starting speaking. So, and anyone has a different goal. So, so this is so to align how you study to what you really want to be able to do with the language. So, and at the same time, balance it. Of course, anything, so listening, reading, writing, speaking, everything is important, but to find a balance, because sometimes, especially with apps, it's super easy. Yes, okay, I only have 5 minutes, so I will do those 5 minutes, but in the end, it's okay. But for example, I've been using Duolingo for 400 days now, but for Greek, I mean, it still suggests words that are like A1. So after 400 days, I can say that there are some words or some things that are useful, but I know that it's not the way that makes me speak Greek. But it's, of course, a great help if you just want to practice just a little bit. So nothing against it, just combine it with many other things. So with what you really want to be able to do with the language. Number 3. So it's about learning multiple languages at the same time. There are many people who say, no, it's actually it's only confusing. There are people who say, yeah, I mix them up. It takes too long. I don't have the time. So no one has to learn multiple languages at the same time. But I know that when the real problem of those people, and there are many who mix languages up, is just because they don't use all of them, or they haven't found a balance yet among the languages they want to maintain. For example, of course, if I speak every day lots of Greek, for example, and then I want to speak a language I barely use, of course, Greek will come to my mind. So the secret is to keep using the languages you really need or you want to improve, because I met many people who, I don't know, came to Germany and knew English very well, and then they said, no, from now on I will only learn German, and they became very good at German, but then they said, yeah, but now I can't remember English anymore because they concentrated too long and too much on a language. So nothing wrong with that, just if you want to be able to speak multiple languages without mixing them up. The important part is to find a balance in your life, so that if you are very good at Spanish, you keep studying, you study more Italian than Spanish because you're really good at Spanish, but you don't forget using your Spanish at least once a week, so that you can still recognize the difference and focus on the differences. Okay, so this nowadays is much more clear to most people. So some years ago it wasn't. And of course, if we do what we love, of course we can enjoy much more what we are doing, and we can stick to it and keep doing it. So, for example, I don't know, I met many people who said, yeah, I study, but I don't like this book, or I don't like the material. And I think everything is possible. Like many other polyglots say, you can live the language, you don't have necessarily, you find whatever you like. So I don't know, if you like, I have a student who likes horse riding, and then you can learn about that in the language you are learning. You don't have to follow a textbook, or at least not only a textbook or whatever you want to use. So start also with things, even from the beginning, that you enjoy the most, because your topics, we all are interested by different things, and it's very, very important that you do things that you enjoy. And even if it's difficult, since you are an expert in this field, if you like horse riding, if you like a certain sport, then it's super, it will help you understand or the vocabulary much quicker, because you are the expert in that. Okay. Number 5, apart from, of course, studying in a consistent way, then focusing on the right things. So these are really just a few examples, but every language, as you know, has things that are super easy, super difficult. When you start learning, I don't know, when I started learning Russian, and one of the first words that I had to learn was "здравствуйте." I didn't even know how to read and to pronounce it because it was too long. And so start with things that you are comfortable with. You don't have to learn all the vocabulary. Focus on things that help you speak. Normally, as probably most of you know, we speak about the future or the past. We don't say, I'm drinking, I'm talking to you, or something like that. So my personal choice, there are many polyglots who are really want to learn as many words as possible, and I belong to the group that I believe that verbs are the most important thing, because you can always look up a word. Of course, in a language with the cases, you also have to know how to use it, but if you know how to express future, past, and in some cases present, for example, in Italian, you can talk about the future tense, or in German, in order to talk about future events, or then if you focus on the right things and not, for example, the last thing I learned in a language is probably the alphabet, because I don't want to work in a call center. I just need to spell my name, and for me it's super boring to spend the first hours when I don't even know the language with the alphabet. So or the other thing I really don't like when I learn languages at the very beginning are numbers. Okay, I cannot go to Garrett and say, Garrett, 1. It's a fantastic conversation. So I prefer, when I talk to people, I talk about what they like, what they did, what they are going to do, what their dreams are. So this is me. This is Elisa. I love talking about what motivates and moves people. So this is why this is what the kind of vocabulary I concentrate on at the very beginning. And everyone is different, but it's important to focus on the right things. Otherwise, specialize, we will be studying, I don't know, for example, in Italian, the textbooks teach you present tense, and then chapter 11, past tense. Come on, I mean, it's really useless, because then I have to wait for, like, it's normally one chapter a week in a school, and then you wait 11 months before being able to have a conversation with anyone. So if you start, I normally start almost on the first lesson, past tense. Because you can already start talking, what did you do yesterday? Che hai fatto ieri? Apart from this irregular verb, you can say, che hai mangiato? So many things to start a conversation, especially food in Italy. Okay. Number 6. So, of course, a very important point is to create a routine and stick to it. Of course, I'm sure you have read many things about it or watched many videos. There are many ways to create a routine, but I believe, so one of the things I prefer most in my day is my daily routine. When you keep doing it for long enough, at a certain point, you just love it. And if you don't do it, you kind of miss it. So the important part is to be consistent long enough so that it's a part of your life, that you really want to do it. But how to do it? So we can discuss that if we want to share tips how to do that. But for sure, for example, in my opinion, when I talk to my students, most people, in the morning they are in a rush, but at the same time, I don't know, this is my case. If I start studying in the evening, it's like I have everything that passed through my mind during the whole day, and it's a lot. So it's like problems or things that I have to solve or things that I wanted to do and I didn't do. So in the end, even though I'm more like a night person, or at least at university, I was more a night person than a person who likes to do something very early in the morning. Nowadays, everything that is very important to me, I do it in the morning. So it doesn't have to be 5 o'clock, but it can be any time possible. And of course, everyone is different. I'm not saying that everyone has to do it, but like this, I feel much more relaxed because I do what I really want you to do, not for 2 hours or 3 hours, but it's like half an hour, 1 hour, and not only languages. So like every morning I do workout, a bit of meditation, and a bit of languages. But like the total of it is maybe 1 hour, so altogether 1 hour and a half, something like that. So find the moment of the day, but of course if you use the same, if you do it at the same time, or a trigger, you put, for example, what I do, I put a certain book in the living room. So when I go to the living room, I can, I even just 5 minutes, I can have fun with that. And something that I've been doing recently, super well known among polyglots. I sometimes don't, when I have more important things to do, I don't allow myself to do them as if it was like, no, you can do it only after you have worked, after you have done that and that. So nowadays I'm using much more like the Pomodoro method, and I do something that is important to my day for 25 minutes, and then I do whatever I want in my 5 minutes. I go somewhere and sing, I learn some languages. Even 5 minutes, it's fine, because if you do it the whole day, then 5 minutes multiplied 5 or 6 times, you have already done many things so in my case I wanted to do. Number 7, I think that nowadays is really, 2 weeks ago I was writing an article on mindset in language learning, and honestly, I told you at the very beginning, I really think that we don't treat ourselves so well. So who thinks that you don't treat yourself so well in self-talk? So, so not all the time. I mean, I don't mean that it's like constant, but could be like, I don't know. So I don't know if you have already lived this situation. Say, I couldn't remember this word. Okay, come on, that's okay. It's normal. Even in my mother tongue, sometimes I cannot remember a word, which is totally normal. But sometimes we are not too kind to ourselves. And I think it's a very important thing. Because something that I tell my students is that if you get angry at yourself, so when you are angry, can you think clearly? Everyone can think clearly? No. So the more you are angry at yourself, the more you feel frustrated, the less you can remember. So instead of getting better, you will get worse. So it's very important to be super kind to yourself. Okay, number 8. Of course, I don't know if you have the same. Sometimes when we start a language, we want to do so much, and I really believe that it's much better to do like 15 minutes, half an hour, because sometimes it's scary. Because if you say, okay, today I will study for 1 hour, then there is a day where you really cannot, and then it's an 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You haven't done it. You say, no, 1 hour. So if you set your goal much lower than what you are able to do, then even on those days where you have less time, you can still do a lot, and at the same time, you will not feel bad. You will think, okay, wow, I've done 20 minutes instead of 5. So I think that, like, I don't know, if you think when you take a walk, or when, I don't know, do you have a step counter? Yeah? No? And so, of course, like if you just walk for 1 hour, you will, according to, I have short legs, but you will, so little by little works much better than wanting to do too many things, too much on one day. So number 9. So 2 things. On one end is to distinguish between accuracy and fluency, because very often we would like to speak very fast, because now I'm speaking very fast, but sometimes we believe that if we speak fast in a language means that we are fluent. To be honest, it's much nicer to listen to someone who speaks slower, and I know. But I said that I'm okay, but so what I try to say, what I tell my students is that even if you speak much slower, actually the person in front of you, especially because you are making mistakes, will be much happier that you speak slower. And when you speak slower, you can also control much better what you are saying. So, and normally we cannot do both things at the same time. So of course, if your level is already AC1 or B2, of course, maybe it's possible. But then it's different. So like, let's say, try to, so not try, I don't want to tell you what to do, but what I think is nice is to know the difference between accuracy and fluency, because there are some moments in order to speak from day one, if you think about accuracy, but I'm not saying that you should make many mistakes from the very beginning. What I mean is that if you use fluency, if you try to train fluency, you will feel more confident, because you can see that you can speak for a longer period of time, and then you alternate than accuracy activities so that you can speak better, of course. And I also wanted to say, yeah, so something that I think many people forget is that personally, I think that it's much better to make some mistakes, but to be yourself, to communicate who you are, and to try, even though you make mistakes, than try to be perfect. Because what I always say, imagine someone was talking to you in a perfect way in your mother tongue, but they didn't use I don't know, maybe they look too arrogant, maybe they seem to, I don't know, they are not super friendly. So communication is 70% nonverbal. So it's much more important that you try to communicate who you are and why you are there talking to people, instead of just trying to be perfect. I know it's very difficult. If you were in a presentation, a very nice presentation yesterday, we know that polyglots want to sound native and want to be perfect, but I think communication is much more important. Okay, and number 10, so about multiple languages at the same time, I just wanted to say, so on one end, there are techniques how to do that. So I wrote a book about how to learn multiple languages at the same time, and there are different techniques. And on one end, if you can study them separately, but also compare if the languages allow that. I mean, if there are some similarities, but there are normally always some similarities, even in languages that do not look very much alike. And very important is not to, many books, when you learn Greek, when you learn languages with a different alphabet from yours, normally they start with the alphabet and they start with words that are similar in your language so that you feel better. And I don't like that very much because normally the words are canapé, divan. Okay, but again, I don't talk about something like that. So for me, it's like I prefer shorter words, two words that look like the ones that I already know, from languages I already know. And the most important thing, if you learn, I don't know, Portuguese and Spanish, Italian and Spanish, or any other similar language, is not to focus on what is similar, because if you learn how to distinguish the languages, which will be, so I didn't write it, but it's point 4, it's the most important thing is to remember the differences, because Italian and Spanish have so many similar things, so you don't have to remember pensar or pensare. It's actually more or less the same apart from some conjugation differences. But apart from that, if you remember the differences, then you can, you will not mix them up when you speak. This is one of the things that is really very important when you learn similar languages at the same time. And the fourth point is more like to recognize how languages change, and of course you can do it on your own, you're a polyglot, or with someone. In that case, you can really have clear in your mind that a language has a certain, looks in a certain way, let's say, so that you cannot mix it up with a similar language. And this is totally possible. Of course, it takes at the beginning a bit of time, but it's totally possible. And the most important part, if you don't want to mix languages up, of course, is to switch between languages. Not in the sense that you say one sentence in one language, one in another, because it's not a real life situation, but in the sense that you can speak for 5 to 15 minutes or even 20 minutes, up to you, in one language, and then you use another language, and this thing, of course, will help you switch the language much more easily. It doesn't take a long time to do that. And of course, it's not that you have to do it, but many people, especially at gatherings or in real life, I don't know, when I'm in Barcelona, it's so nice to be able to talk to different people in different languages, and then it's very nice to be able to switch. So I know some polyglots who are super good at many languages, but some of them, not everyone, say that it's for them it's a bit difficult to switch. I know it sounds maybe to many of you it doesn't sound. Yeah, I met many of those people who are super good at languages, but just they didn't train to switch from one language into another. I'm not saying everyone. So I just wanted to show the book, How to Become Fluent in Multiple Languages. And yeah, so now I wanted to make it a discussion. Do you have any questions? Do anything you are interested? So I had to make it short. We had to finish like now. 12:30. So do you have any topic you would like me to talk or we want to talk about, or do you have any questions? So I don't intentionally keep in touch with people. So I am a firm believer that people are people. So I talk to people only because I want to talk to them, not because of the language. But I definitely use something like Netflix. For example, when I do my dishes, I listen to languages like Greek, Russian, or other languages all the time, because I think it's the best way when you're really good at a language, or if you want to improve it, is to have lots of input. And in order to maintain languages, you don't need to do so much if you don't wait too long to start doing it. So if your level is any level, but if you keep doing it, even for just 5 minutes a day, it's already enough to maintain it. According to the level, the higher the level, the less frequently you need to use the language. But of course, if you don't want to lose it, even just if you do just a bit, it's for your brain to remember that it's important. That's it. Any questions? Yes?
Just a comment or a question. Have you ever tried sort of focusing your study time like based on time of the day or spatially? Like, let's say you learn Italian in the kitchen and German in the dining room, or you learn Italian in the morning and German at night.
Absolutely, yeah. So in the morning after my workout, what I study is Greek. It's 100% sure. This is what I study after workout because something that I want to make sure that I do every day. And about rooms, I don't have one room for one language, one for another, but I do study in different parts of the flat because for me it's too boring to be in one place. And I know that if I think, I don't know, then I will change place and it's a different vibe, a different thing. So I do use that. Yes?
Here's your opinion on flashcards and vocabulary building. Yes, how?
So my opinion on that, so I think that it depends on people. If you are a person who likes something structured and of course, flashcards, especially when so either the physical ones or the ones that use a good space repetition program, then I think they can be very useful. I personally think that I'm not patient enough to use it in a consistent way because first of all, because I never use lists made by someone else unless I know they're super good, because they don't contain the words that I want to learn. So, because many cases the method is too traditional and is not what I want to learn. Maybe if you find cards for Polish, again, you will find, I don't know, Czech. Okay, but it's an impossible word to learn on day one. So I cannot start with that. So this is why I normally prefer to do my own flashcards, but at the same time, it costs lots of time. And this is why I prefer to do it manually. But I don't do, for example, many years ago when I was studying German, then I started to have a notebook and I wrote up to 1,000 words. And then I got totally bored because I also have to revise them. And then when there are 1,000 words, how can I revise them? So I was using a method that it was super good, and I can also tell you about that. But at the same time, at a certain point, it's too much. So I prefer to see words in context, and I prefer my favorite method to revise words, to learn words, is listening, because there are many people who speak like as fast as me in this moment, and so you have so many words, and if you really know many of them, you can revise so many words at the same time. And at the same time, if your level is lower, then there are many nice options. As I said, you can read as a detective, and I find it much better. For example, if you're learning, let's say, German, then when you read it, say, okay, but why auf dem? And you can think, okay, it must be neutral or masculine. And then you can start thinking about something like that. And so for me, the best way to learn or revise vocabulary for me is listening and reading, for the way I am. But I do believe that in some cases flashcards can be very effective, and again it depends on the personality. I am someone who likes to move a lot, and this is why sitting too long for me it's a bit difficult, but if you enjoy that, then it's perfect. I envy you, yeah. Something else you would like to talk about? For example, when I teach 3 languages, let's say someone who hasn't ever learned Italian, Spanish, and French, when for example, I explain past tense in, let's say, French, and it takes 10-15 minutes so that they can really use it, not just understand it, use it. And then when I explain the same thing in Italian, it takes 5 or 10 minutes, and then the third language, it takes 3 minutes. So this is why if you either can do it on your own, or you find a way to understand how to compare them, it's fantastic. I mean, you don't have to study the same thing over and over again, because many people say, yeah, study one language and then the other. But by the time you are super fluent in one language, when you're fluent, you don't think about the grammar. So you don't think, okay, what am I using now? You don't think about that. So then you have to start from scratch and learn, okay, puedo. Okay, so it's boring because you have already learned it and you already studied for a long time. So when you do it at the same time, it's actually quicker, not slower. You are all polyglots. So there are like two options. Of course, what I said before, when you learn multiple languages at the same time, the most important thing is to focus on differences. So those past tense in Romance languages, most is very similar. But as you said, for example, Latin America, they use much more like comi. In Spain, you can also use in certain cases e comido. In Italian, you always use ho mangiato. And in French, you almost always use j'ai mangé. So this is why it's very important. So, of course, how you can find out, depending on the languages you are learning, it depends if you are a bit proactive and you want to look for information about that, or if you want someone to explain it to you. It depends on your personality, time, and resources, because it's totally possible to compare them, but then compare, so either you can certainly find websites that compare two languages. Then if you want to, it's really up to you if you want to look for, I don't know, a good website that compares two languages, then you look for another website that compares two more languages, and then you make the comparison yourself. Or if you want someone to do it for you, according to how much time and what you are looking for. But it's totally possible. It is exactly what you should. You don't. So, for example, I don't learn the same sentences in all the languages I learn. First of all, because the conversation topic is not the same. So if you talk in Italy about weather, we would be bored to death. So, but you have to learn it in other languages. So it's normal small talk conversation. So this is why I don't want to translate the same sentence in all languages, but I do want to learn the differences, grammatical differences and cultural differences. So, again, it depends on what you like. If you already find it boring, you already know the answer for by yourself. For example, when I started Dutch, I could already read books. Okay, I wouldn't understand 100%, but without knowing much Dutch, I could already read it because of my German. And so, if your level allows you to read a book, and then you can decide which type, which topic, of course, it wouldn't be bad. And then you can be a detective while you're reading your book, so that you can notice the differences. But otherwise, I don't know. I think for Portuguese, especially Brazilian Portuguese, I found material that is super nice as well. So there is one book which is colloquial Portuguese, and I like it a lot. So I don't know, I can show you later the book. So I don't find it boring, because it's really everyday conversation, and so it's a bit for language nerds, because it's not a real textbook, but it's very practical, very nice.
I would ask, what helps you to switch between languages quickly?
What, in which sense?
I mean, for example, during the conversation, like you are staying and speaking French, and then you need to speak English, or teach French and then quickly English. What helps you to switch between languages in your head?
In my head. Okay, so two things. I studied to be an interpreter, simultaneous interpreter. So in my case, I did it from the very beginning. But I can tell you a technique that we as interpreters do. So we do shadowing, even in the same language. For example, you listen to something in French, and you just repeat after what you. So can you speak in English for a second?
Yes.
No, so well, fast. Hey, what a beautiful day. Nice conference. So shadowing means that you repeat like with just a short delay, and that helps you already, even if it's the same language. It's the first exercise that we do at interpreting school, and I don't say that I have to do that, but in my head, so sometimes when I have to switch between languages that I don't know very well, something that I try to do, or I do the same with my students, what I try to either to listen to, of course not while I'm talking to someone, or I try to listen to someone for 30 seconds who speaks that language, so it activates what I already know in that language, or I try to think about something that I know already very well, I don't know, something that I learned before that I am much more sure about, and then it activates the part of the brain where that language is, in my case. Yes? Okay, so for what I couldn't understand because, but I understood the question. So how I came up with the idea of learning multiple languages at the same time. So actually it was just my passion because I went to Germany and without knowing German and I started to learn German. And then I met some nice, so for me motivation is always people. So I met some nice people from Latin America. I said, oh, but Spanish is also nice, and started to learn Spanish. And then in the same period I met nice Russian people, and I said, okay, then Russian is also nice. And then I met nice Brazilians. I said, oh, they're super nice. And I started to learn multiple languages at the same time. And so my day was okay. At the very beginning, I was doing 1 hour, 15 minutes every language. And so because I wanted to improve in all of them, I didn't want to wait, otherwise I would have waited forever. And this is what I've started. And then when I wanted to add new languages and maintain the other ones, then, for example, there have been moments where I studied maybe one language for only 5 minutes if I already knew it well enough, and then I dedicated more time to the languages I wanted to learn because I didn't know very well. Yes? At the very beginning, if you notice that you need more time, you should allow yourself more time. So you can, for example, say, okay, I will be, instead of 15 minutes, I will do the first 2 weeks, I will do 40 minutes, but then with time you can change. For example, when I give a class, if I see that the person wants to learn and can learn multiple languages at the very beginning, then I do also 15 minutes, so 4 languages in 1 hour or 3. But then if I see that the person needs more time, because maybe this person is better in one language and never studied another language, I dedicate more time to the new language compared to the other ones. But then after a while, then it's balanced again. So also according to the needs. If you need more time for one language, or if you want to speak better in one language. But yes, I totally understand. Okay, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure.